The auction house in Montana fell silent when Marcus Wheeler stepped through the doors. His weathered boots echoed against the wooden floor, and his jaw was clenched so tight that men stepped aside without being asked. Everyone in Copper Valley knew the rancher who worked the largest spread east of the mountains, and everyone knew better than to cross him when his eyes looked like thunderclouds. Marcus had come to town for livestock feed. He had no intention of entering the auction house until he heard the crying. 4 distinct voices, young and frightened, carried through the open windows and stopped him dead in his tracks on the dusty street. Inside, he found them standing on the platform where cattle usually stood. 4 girls, ranging from perhaps 6 to 14 years old, clutching each other's hands while a thin man in a fancy Eastern suit gestured toward them like they were property. Their parents passed 3 months ago. The man was explaining to the sparse crowd, "I've no means to care for them. They're strong girls, good for household work. I'm accepting reasonable offers for their indenture contracts." Marcus felt the anger rise from his stomach to his throat. He recognized greed when he saw it, and this man practically dripped with it. The uncle, Marcus later learned his name was Howard Price, had inherited everything from his deceased brother, except the responsibility of raising 4 orphaned nieces. $200 for the lot. Someone called out, "They can work my kitchen." $250. Another voice added. Marcus watched the oldest girl pull her sisters closer. Her chin was lifted in defiance, but her hands were trembling. The youngest buried her face against her sister's worn dress. $500, Marcus heard himself say. His own voice surprised him. Howard Price's eyes widened with delight. "Sold to the gentleman in the back." Marcus paid the money, signed the papers, and led the 4 terrified girls to his wagon without speaking a word. They sat in the back among the feed sacks, huddled together, watching him with eyes that expected cruelty. He drove them 12 miles to his ranch in complete silence. When they arrived, his housekeeper, a widow named Ruth, who had worked for him since his wife passed 8 years earlier, came running out. "Marcus Wheeler, what have you done?" she demanded. He handed her the indenture papers, then walked to the fireplace in his study. Ruth and the 4 girls watched from the doorway as he threw every document into the flames. "Those papers say I own your work until you're 18, he said, turning to face the children. "The fire says you're free. This is your home now if you want it." The youngest girl, whose name was Penny, started crying again. But this time, the tears were different. The first year was difficult. The girls, Eleanor, Margaret, Catherine, and little Penny, had been taught to fear adults and expect nothing but labor and punishment. Marcus gave them their own rooms, enrolled them in the town school, and ate dinner with them every evening, asking about their studies and their dreams. Eleanor wanted to be a doctor. The whole table went quiet when she admitted it, waiting for laughter that never came. "Then you'll need more books," Marcus said. And the next week, a crate of medical texts arrived from Denver. Margaret loved music. A piano appeared in the parlor, and Marcus hired a teacher from the city to visit twice monthly. Catherine was fascinated by the law. She wanted to understand how men like her uncle could sell children and face no consequences. Marcus found her a mentor in the county judge, who began teaching her about justice and legislation. Penny, still so young, simply wanted a family. This required no purchase, no special arrangement. It required only time, patience, and a gruff rancher learning how to braid hair and check for monsters under beds. Years passed. The ranch prospered, but Marcus invested his profits in something more important than land or cattle. He built a schoolhouse on the edge of town, the first one large enough to serve all the children in the valley. He named it the Wheeler Learning Hall though the townspeople started calling it the Sisters' School because of who inspired it. But that was only the beginning. When Eleanor turned 16, Marcus sold a portion of his grazing land and established a scholarship fund in her name, allowing gifted students from poor families to pursue higher education. Eleanor became the first recipient, attending medical college in the East. Margaret's musical education led her to become a teacher herself. Marcus built a small conservatory attached to the schoolhouse, where children could learn instruments regardless of their family's wealth. Catherine's passion for justice inspired something unprecedented. Marcus worked with the county judge, now a close family friend, to draft new legislation protecting orphaned children from being sold into labor. Catherine, just 19 years old, testified before the territorial legislature with such passion and clarity that the law passed unanimously. It became known as the Sisters' Protection Act, and similar legislation spread to neighboring territories within the decade. Little Penny, who grew up surrounded by love and possibility, became a writer. Her first published work told the story of 4 sisters and the angry rancher who saved them. The book traveled across the country, reaching thousands of readers who then demanded better protections for vulnerable children in their own communities. Marcus Wheeler passed away at the age of 72, surrounded by 4 women who called him father, 11 grandchildren who called him grandfather, and a legacy that had transformed how an entire region treated its most vulnerable citizens. At his funeral, Eleanor, now a respected physician, delivered the eulogy. People often asked him why he did it. She told the overflowing church why he spent $500 on 4 frightened girls, why he burned their papers, why he spent his fortune building schools and fighting for laws to protect children he would never meet. She paused, looking at her sisters, all of them gray-haired now, but still holding hands the way they had on that auction platform 50 years earlier. He always gave the same answer. He said that anger could destroy, or anger could build. His anger at injustice built a school. His anger at cruelty built a law. His anger at indifference built a family. The Wheeler Learning Hall still stands today, expanded many times over the generations. The Sisters' Protection Act became the foundation for child welfare legislation across the nation. And every year, on the anniversary of that auction, the descendants of Marcus Wheeler and the 4 sisters he saved gather to remember that sometimes the angriest heart carries the deepest love, and sometimes $500 spent in righteous fury can change the course of history.